Is it time? Oh, just
talk to you after. Okay. Good morning, Unity of Carlsbad. So good to see you on this first Sunday in spring. Wow, spring already. Well, welcome to our parking lot service. My name is Robyn, Plante, the senior minister here at Unity of Carlsbad, and let's welcome back Jack Nalbandian, who has some wonderful music for us today with a wave or a flashing of the lights. Thank you, Jack. So before we get started, a couple of announcements. I'm told that the restrooms are open if you need them. They're over by the ball fields with the red roof. And also our parking lot service is on the first and third Sundays of the month. So our next parking lot service will be April 4th on Easter. I invite you to bring bubbles, Let's just be creative and send that bubble of joy up. So we're glad you're here and you can enjoy being in community at your own level of comfort with others. And if you decide to get out of your car, I see many of you are making the rounds. Thank you for wearing your mask and physically distancing and having the patience, awareness, and level of care for each other and for this community. We also have a new class coming up called Conscious Aging. It begins April 1st, and it's a good way to get more self-awareness, self-compassion about the aging process, whatever age you are, and discover what has heart and meaning for you now. It's also a great way to connect with others. So Sunshine has some more information and flyers, or you can talk to me after service about it. And also a reminder that we are being good neighbors and we're waving or flashing our lights instead of honking out of respect to our neighbors today. So let us begin now, and as we center ourselves into our time of prayer, let us begin with our unity statement of truth. There is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And I am one with that presence and power. Let us affirm this together again. There is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And I am one with that presence and power. Letting that truth sink in even deeper one more time. There is only one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And I am one with that presence and power. So breathing into the heart of oneness, let us give thanks for this beautiful day, this beautiful spring day, and the newness that the season of life brings. And we lean into the renewal of strength and beauty within us and springing up all around us. And a fertile field of amazing possibilities, amazing grace within us and all around us. So if there is someone on your heart this morning that you would like to include in healing prayer, You may speak their name either silently or aloud. For all the names spoken and unspoken, we let go and we let God as we hold the light of faith and hope for each heart, that they receive exactly what they need for healing, harmony, prosperity, guidance, divine right outworking, and resolution, as all are lifted up into the light of God's love and know they are loved. And so we give thanks this day for the release from the lockdown of forgetfulness and of deliverance into full remembrance of who and what we are as beloved creations of a loving Creator and one family of God's love. So we thank you, God, for a beautiful day. Amen. And now Jack will have an opening song for us.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Good? Oh, great. All right, so we're going to sing a great song today called I'm Choosing Heaven Today. So here we go. Feel free to clap. I'm choosing heaven today. I'm choosing heaven today. I am walking the road of heaven right now, singing I'm choosing heaven today. My headphones is choosing gravity. I'll sing that again. I'm choosing heaven today. I'm choosing heaven today. I am walking the road of heaven right now, singing I'm choosing heaven today. How about we choose some love this morning here in Carlsbad? I'm choosing love today. I'm choosing love today. I am walking the road of love right now, singing I'm choosing love today. We're going to keep going here. How about some grace, some amazing grace? I'm choosing grace today. I'm choosing grace today. I am walking the road of grace right now, singing I'm choosing grace today. And once we've received that grace, we could feel that joy starting to surge through us. I'm feeling joy today. I'm feeling joy today. I am walking the road of joy right now, singing I'm choosing joy today. Beautiful, joyful morning today. Once again, we're choosing heaven. I'm choosing heaven today. I'm choosing heaven today. I am walking the road of heaven right now, singing I'm choosing heaven today. I am walking the road of heaven right now, singing I'm choosing heaven today. We're choosing heaven today. Choosing heaven. All right. All right.
Thank you, Jack. What a great song. I'm choosing heaven today. Yes, yes, yes. Well, in the words of Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore, the winds of grace are always blowing. It is you who must raise your sails. So today we're raising our sails for God's grace as we lean into the mystery and explore, what is it? What is grace? How can we cooperate with it more? And also, how can we pay it forward? So would you like an experience of grace today? Who would like that? Experience of grace today. I see a lot of hands and lights flashing. Well, let's set that intention with an affirmation. I am a place of God's loving grace. I am a place of God's loving grace. Say this with me. I am a place of God's loving grace. Once more. I am a place of God's loving grace. And just notice how that feels. So there are many references to grace, the power of it in the Bible. We see grace that saves us from the full effects of our mistakes. It spares us from dire consequences and steers us to greater good. And while we've heard it defined as undeserved favor or goodwill or a disposition to show mercy, grace is much more than that. So here's some lovely descriptions to ponder. Grace is the generous act of God's love. The result of grace is peace. Phil Barnhart. The grace of God is, in my mind, shaped like a key that comes from time to time and unlocks the heavy doors. Donald Swan. And from Thomas Merton. Grace is not a strange magic substance which subtly filters into our souls to act as a kind of spiritual penicillin. Grace is unity, oneness within ourselves, oneness with God. So we can feel it when grace is happening, right? And from Charles Fillmore, The Revealing Word, grace is goodwill, favor, disposition to show mercy, aid from God in the process of regeneration. So that really fits with the theme of our Easter story that is all about life, crucifixion, death, resurrection, and regeneration. And regeneration is defined as restoring of the mind and body to its original state by the energies of the Christ mind. Wow. So how would you define grace? How do you know when you've received it? I used to think grace was kind of like the blue light special in a department store. You know, you had to be in the right place at the right time to get the deal. But here's the deal. Grace is multifaceted. Grace is a consciousness. It operates 24/7, 365 days a year, and grace is active right now in this parking lot, in your car, sitting next to you, in your car right now. Grace is here. And while we may have heard other definitions in traditional churches, I want to share some unity teachings about grace with you. So consider these aspects of grace. It's benevolent, and the same measure is given to all people. We don't have to earn it. Don't have to be a good girl or a good boy or a good person to earn it. It's freely given. Grace is the nature of being, and part of our relationship with God as co-creators. It has a healing power that frees us from limitation in body, mind, and spirit. And it is our salvation, returning to the Christ mind, our salvation, and that grace frees us from error thought and the results of those thoughts. We never reap the full negative effects of our mistakes. Have you ever said to yourself after something happened, wow, that could have been worse? Or think about times when you were a kid or a teenager, even an adult, and acted in a reckless way or a clueless way or an uncaring way, tempting fate. You know, those times that may make us blush when we think about them now. But we're spared injury or serious consequence. Has anyone had a time like that in their lives? Those are stories to sit around and share around a nice warm fire with a cup of cocoa sometime. So grace has been at work in our lives. Even when we haven't recognized it, it's been at work. Grace frees us from the idea of even exchange, that eye for an eye mentality. And grace is another name for that pure, unconditional love of God, continually operating and expressed to all humankind. So we can see these qualities showing up in Jesus and his ministry as he taught us and taught, love your neighbor, bless and pray for those who you might think don't deserve it. Include everyone. Go the extra mile. Forgive. Let go of those old Mosaic eye for an eye ways of revenge. I like this from John 1:16-17. From his fullness we have received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Grace and truth. So grace always seeks to express greater abundance of good in our lives. And not just in our lives, but it can't help but spill out to others around us when we let that good flow through us. So other names for it, some may have called it synchronicity, when things just line up, or certain perfect meetings. Some may have called it, or you may have called it serendipity, or good luck, good fortune, divine order, the right timing, all the pieces falling into place, or intervention from angels. That's a whole nother talk we'll get to at some point. But grace never runs out. But sometimes we can unintentionally block it by our thinking. We may think that obstacles to our good come from outside of us, but really it's an inside job. And so our meditation at the end here it's called the Grace Prayer, which is a meditation of surrendering to the grace of God, and this will help us release any blocks. So some blocks that resist grace and their remedies. Let's talk about that. So judging by appearances is one block. And making up negative story, blaming others. Because when we're invested in that energy, we miss the open doors. We miss the blessings. So the remedy is we can always ask to see a person or a situation with new eyes. We can ask in prayer, what else do I need to know about this? Or is there another way that I can see this? And so we're remembering that grace is operating all the time when we're awake and when we're sleeping. So we can ask for God's grace to work while we sleep. I remember my mother had this experience, and she was so astonished. She shared with me one time she was having an issue with one of the family members. We'll call this family member Daisy. And she woke up one morning, and she said, I woke up and I had this overwhelming love for Daisy in my heart. And all of the anger was gone, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of, I love her. That's grace at work, when we're awake and when we're asleep. And the relationship shifted after that. Another block to grace is the belief that we must do all of the work ourselves. Push the river. Have you had times like that? And don't we end up exhausted and anxious when we try to do it all ourselves? So a remedy can be surrender and build our trust in God with the little things and the big things. And doing it with the little things helps us have more faith and trust in God with the big things. And to know that we are fully sourced and resourced, and the universe has our backs. This sounds like an affirmation for me. I am fully sourced and resourced. The universe has my back. Let's try that together. I am fully sourced and resourced. The universe has my back. Once more. I am fully sourced and resourced. The universe has my back. So a couple more of these blocks and remedies. One that often comes up, a block to grace, is the fear of the will of God. That if we surrender, that God's will might cause us pain or suffering. But we have to remember that God's will for us is always expanded good, never pain or suffering. So the remedy is building that trust and building that assurance that no matter what happens in this human experience, the sweet and sour, the joys and sorrows, the trials and tribulations, to know at depth that we are loved. And to know that we can use any experience, especially one of those trying experiences, to know God more. To know God more. Myrtle Fillmore wrote a wonderful book called How to Let God Help You. How many of you are familiar with that book? There's some wonderful things in there. Wonderful wisdom from Myrtle Fillmore. Another block to grace is greed or hoarding or only taking, not giving, or trying to get something for nothing. So the remedy is to just give something to get back into the flow of abundance, whether it's a smile, a compliment, a good deed, time, attention, treasure. To give, to be in giving, get back into the flow. And another block to grace, and this may be the hardest one to overcome, is the insistence on even exchange all the time. Have you had times in your life when you've said, "That's not fair"? Yeah. When you think that someone has gotten away with something or given a free pass or rewarded when they did something wrong, and they got away with it instead of a consequence or a punishment. Such as something like a car accident where the other party's at fault, but since there were no witnesses, they could claim they were not responsible and avoid paying any damages. This happened to me a few years ago, and I remember being so angry at God. angry at God too, and having this conversation with God. God, you were there. You know the truth. Why are they getting away with this? And I just remember this was just so overwhelming, this disappointment. My car was totaled. Was in the hospital for a while. And I've been saving for a house. It was my heart's dream to own a house. So I had to use some of that house savings to pay for expenses as a result. So fortunately at the time, it was the time when I was going to Unity Village every summer to take classes and work on my licensed Unity teacher credits. And I went to Unity Village for one of these sessions, and I was praying for understanding and relief from the burning anger I felt every time I thought about this. And if you've ever been to Unity Village and taken classes, what happens is you pray a lot. If you're in 5 classes during the day, you pray at the beginning of class and at the end of class. And so we have, 10 times a day just in class praying. And then there's the prayer chapel and walking the grounds and just immerse in grace and prayer and the energy of collective prayer. And so this is where I learned that grace does not deal in even exchanges. And I just prayed for the burden of my heart to let it go. And I came home. I flew home with a lighter heart. And then shortly after, I became aware of a first-time homebuyer program that included a grant for a down payment. So I was able to qualify for this and buy my house with a very small fee, perhaps the cost of a month's rent down, which is truly a blessing, an amazing blessing. And so while there was no compensation from the accident, here was something even better. And if I had stayed in my anger and blame and it's not fair, I think I would have missed this. I would have missed this opportunity. I wouldn't have seen it. So grace works. And letting go and knowing that grace works in its own time. And grace, you have grace coming to you in its own time. So that grace that always seeks to express greater abundance of good in our lives, it's happening in your life right now. Can you sense it? Can you invite it in? So let's do a little check-in right now to see if we can spot grace at work in our lives with some unexpected good that we may have overlooked. So you can do a little mental check-off as we go through this. So, have you received an increase in financial good? I know many are happy with the stimulus that has arrived or is arriving. Perhaps you've experienced a physical pain that has disappeared. Or you have been waking up well rested. Or perhaps a mistake you became aware of that was caught in time to be fixed. Or an extension or a grace period for a deadline given to you. Or an unexpected solution appearing from out of the blue. Or an interaction with someone that has just fed your soul or just brightened your day, an unexpected blessing, no matter where you're at the coffee shop or the dentist or even on the phone with support. Or an assurance of peace and faith that everything will be okay. Everything is going to be okay. I am a place of God's loving grace. Together, I am a place of God's loving grace. I am a place of God's loving grace. So some ways we can pay it forward this week. It's by treating all people as sacred until the sacred in them remembers. This might look like forgiving a mistake, releasing someone from a debt, being a gracious driver on the road, or having compassion for someone's unskillful remarks or behavior, or sparing someone embarrassment. I think of the story of Queen Victoria at her fancy diplomatic dinner with all of these people, and her guest of honor from another country, another culture. He took the finger bowl and drank it. And there was, the proper British in the room. There was a gasp. But Queen Victoria didn't miss a beat. She took her bowl and drank it down. And then everybody in the room drank their finger bowls, saving the guest from embarrassment. So grace saves us from the full effects of our mistakes. It spares us from dire consequences and steers us toward greater good. Grace is kind of the opposite of cancel culture. So the story I want to share with you before we close is about Jill Jackson Miller. And Jill was orphaned at 3 years old, and she found herself in the foster care system until the age of 12 when she was legally adopted. So Jill had a really rough childhood and struggled with depression as a young adult. And after her first marriage ended, she was so devastated that she tried to take her own life. But thankfully, that attempt failed as she was saved by grace. And she writes of this pivotal experience. She says, "For the first time, I felt unconditional love, which is God is. God is unconditional love. You are totally loved, totally accepted, just the way you are." In that moment, she continues, "In that moment, I was not allowed to die. Something happened to me which is very difficult to explain. I had an eternal moment of truth in which I knew I was loved and knew I was here for a purpose." So who is Jill Jackson Miller, you might ask? Well, remember the peace song we used to sing at the end of our services? "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." Jill Jackson Miller wrote that song shortly after this experience. And what you might not know about the peace song is that it was first introduced in a small group in 1955 at a weekend retreat with teenagers from different religious, racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And these 180 teenagers sang this song together. And when they came down from the retreat, they were inspired to sing it in their homes, their churches, their clubs. And then the song just took off around the world, through all the 50 states, through all the continents, and is still being sung today. I am the place of God's loving grace. So know that you are loved and you are here for a purpose. We are here for a purpose. We have survived being tripped up, let down, passed over, and pulled through personal and collective transformation that is still going on. But we have that strength that has disarmed COVID, dispelled fear, deconstructed illusions of separation, and continues to discern truth and continues to keep us strong and centered and alive as a place for God's living grace. So now let us take a time of meditation that will be our grace prayer. And this prayer is very powerful, and it invites us that if there's any burdens we've been carrying, to just mentally put them outside the car on the ground and let grace blow them away, the wind of grace. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to do so. And take a deep breath and let your body settle into greater ease and comfort. As we let go and let God in this prayer of surrender. And we've been in this prayer of surrender. As we let go and let God. And surrender into the unconditional love of God. God, for you I thirst. Into your hands I commit my spirit, my soul, my life, this current problem, and any unforgiven state. Your will is my will. Your will be done through me. Heal me at depth. Reveal that which needs to be revealed. And heal that which needs to be healed. So I may glorify you, God, and live in the fullness of grace. So let us take a couple of breaths now in a quiet moment. Bringing our awareness back to this place, saying, thank you, God. Amen. So now as we prepare for our time of giving, whether you have a physical gift or a prayerful gift, I invite you to think of your gift or hold it in your hands as we say our love offering blessing together, knowing we give in love because we love to give. So together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And we send a prayer to those in the ambulance, fire truck, and those on the receiving end, knowing that help is on the way, help is on the way. So a couple of reminders before we have our closing song. We'll be back here in 2 weeks on April 4th for Easter Sunday. So bring your bubbles. Before you go, drive by and say hello. And again, if you're interested in the Conscious Aging class, Sunshine has some flyers. It starts April 1st. Or you can talk to me about that. And thank you, everyone, for being here and adding your love, your support, your energy to this beautiful community And aren't we blessed to have this space, this parking lot space with wonderful weather, with signs of beauty and life all around us. So thank you for being here today.